Tangled in Tuscany. Chapter 29. When the Grapes Fall. The morning sun poured in through the open shutters, spilling across the desk where Sophia sat. Her laptop was open, but most of the surface was claimed by scattered prints. Snapshots of the harvest, the vineyard in every season, and the people who made it all breathe. She turned one over, running her thumb along the edge before setting it aside. In the corner of her notes, the title, Tangled in Tuscany, was scrawled in her looping handwriting. It had been a working title at first, but now it felt inevitable, like it had always belonged to her. She didn't hear Luca until the floorboards gave a soft creak. He was leaning against the doorframe, still in his work shirt, the faint scent of grapes and dust clinging to him. His gaze drifted over the images until it landed on one. Her, kneeling in the dirt between two rows, camera raised, sunlight bending over her shoulder. "That one," he said, pointing. She glanced at it, then at him, lifting a brow. "You're picking me for my own book." He shrugged, the corner of his mouth curving. "It's what I see when I think of here." A warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the sunlight. She slid the photo into the keep stack, not bothering to hide her smile. Once, she'd felt like she was only borrowing this place, cataloging it before it slipped away from her. Now, each image felt like something she owned, not in possession but in belonging. These were her hills, her vines, her people. And Luca wasn't just one of the subjects anymore. He was part of the story she was telling, fixed into every frame whether he knew it or not. By late afternoon, the courtyard had shifted from quiet to alive. The hum of voices carried through the air, layered over the rhythmic clink of glasses and the low strum of a guitar. Lanterns were strung above long wooden tables, their gentle sway catching the last of the sun. Platters of bread, wheels of cheese, bowls of olives, and roasted meats filled every inch of space, the scents mingling with the sharp tang of young wine and the sweet smoke from the outdoor ovens. The harvest wasn't quite over, but it was close enough for celebration. Laughter rose in waves, neighbors greeting each other with clasped hands and kisses on both cheeks, children weaving through the crowd with sticky fingers and grape juice stains on their shirts. From somewhere near the vines, Kiara's voice carried over the music, warm and bright, pulling more people toward the tables. Sophia moved through it with an ease that surprised her. A year ago, she would have been smiling politely, unsure of names, lingering at the edges where she could observe without being swept in. Tonight, she was greeted with familiarity, her cheeks brushed in greeting, her hands squeezed by those who remembered the way she'd knelt in the dirt or carried crates to the press. She no longer felt like a guest invited to witness the season. She felt like part of its heartbeat. Luca was never far from her, but not in the way he used to be. Hovering, guiding, making sure she didn't get lost. He stayed close because he wanted to, his presence easy and unspoken, like a rhythm she had learned to match. She caught him watching her more than once, not in the cautious way of someone trying to gauge her mood, but with the quiet certainty of a man who already knew she was exactly where she wanted to be. The festival didn't feel like a spectacle anymore. It was a closing chapter. Of the harvest, of the long summer, of everything they had been working toward without fully realizing it. And for the first time since she arrived in Tuscany, Sophia wasn't holding a camera between herself and the world. She wasn't watching from a safe distance. She was right in the middle of it, her shoulders brushing friends as she passed, her hands busy, her heart steady in the knowledge that she belonged here, in this life, with him. The first strum of the mandolin rose over the hum of conversation, bright and insistent, joined a moment later by the beat of a tambourine. Sophia had just set down a plate of roasted peppers when Luca's hand found hers. He didn't ask. He didn't even speak. Just closed his fingers around hers and began to draw her toward the center of the courtyard, where a small patch of space had been cleared. She caught his eye, half laughing, half surprised, but his grin was all the answer she needed. The music picked up, spilling over the tables and out into the night. Luca's hand slid to her waist, warm and certain, while her other hand came to rest on his shoulder as naturally as breathing. They began to move, not with the tentative, testing steps of that first dance months ago, but with a rhythm that belonged entirely to them. His steps were sure, hers light, the kind of ease that could only come from knowing exactly where the other would be before they got there. Around them, the crowd responded instantly, clapping in time, the sound carrying up toward the lantern-lit vines. Someone called out a teasing remark in dialect, something about the vineyard's newest, Tuscan girl, and Sophia, instead of blushing or shrinking, only laughed. She spun under Luca's arm, her skirt brushing against his legs, her hair catching in the breeze before his hand found her waist again. The music seemed to fold the world into something smaller, simpler. There was no camera between them now, no worry about how it might look from the outside. This was not the kind of dance meant for showing off. It was a quiet claim, an easy declaration. She didn't need to wonder if anyone could tell they were together. Anyone watching would see it plainly. They moved through the last notes without hurrying, letting the steps stretch until the final chord rang out, their hands still linked. For a moment, it felt like the festival itself had shifted, all its energy pulled into the small space between them. Applause broke around them, warm and genuine. Chiara appeared almost immediately, weaving through the clapping crowd with 2 glasses of wine balanced expertly in her hands. For the vineyard's finest, she announced with mock formality, handing one to Sophia and one to Luca. Sophia accepted hers with a smile, the stem cool against her fingers. She caught sight of a pair of older neighbors, whispering to each other. Their eyes crinkled in approval. A few others nodded in her direction with quiet smiles, and even Matteo, who rarely wasted a word, had a grin tugging at his mouth. She felt a blush rise, but not the shy, uncertain kind. This was different. This was heat born of being seen exactly as she was, with Luca's hand resting at the small of her back, anchoring her in place. He didn't need to say anything to make the claim. The gesture was enough. It told the world she wasn't passing through, that she was his, part of him, part of this place. In the shadows near the barn, Alessia leaned casually against the doorframe, the dim light softening the sharp lines of her face. Her smile wasn't wide, but it was steady, touched with something like pride. She didn't call out, didn't tease, didn't even wave. She just watched, as if this was exactly what she'd known would happen all along. Sophia met her gaze for the briefest second, an unspoken thank you passing between them. Alessia inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement before taking a sip from her own glass. The moment settled deep in Sophia's chest, warm and sure. This wasn't just about the dance, or the festival, or even the end of the harvest. It was about the quiet acceptance from the people who mattered most. Neighbors, family, friends, folding her fully into the life she had chosen. And for the first time since she'd set foot in Tuscany, she realized she wasn't waiting for the right moment to belong. She was already here. Later, when the music softened to a gentler rhythm, and half-empty plates were being carried away, Luca reappeared at Sophia's side. He had a small bundle in his hands, wrapped neatly in tissue and tied with a thin piece of twine. "This came for you," he said, his voice low enough that it felt like a private exchange despite the hum of voices around them. She frowned in curiosity, setting down her glass before taking it from him. The paper crinkled as she peeled it back, revealing a bottle of deep red wine. The label made her pause. The year stamped in elegant lettering was the year she had first arrived here. Not the vintage they were celebrating tonight, but a year tied to beginnings, to uncertainty, to a version of herself who hadn't yet known she would stay. A folded note was taped to the bottle, the paper thick and the handwriting immediately familiar. Viola's script was neat, deliberate. Sophia unfolded it, the single line catching in her throat. "You did well." No explanation, no signature, no elaborate sentiment. Just 3 words, stripped of everything but meaning. She stared at them, feeling the weight of all the months, all the moments that had led to this. Luca leaned slightly to read over her shoulder, his breath warm near her ear. When he straightened, his gaze found hers, steady and warm. "We'll open it together," he said. Her fingers traced the glass, the bottle cool against her palms. "I'd like that," she murmured, sliding it into her bag with the same care she might give to a fragile artifact. It didn't feel like just a gift. It felt like permission. Not to erase where she'd been, but to weave it into what they were building now. Viola's words weren't only for the harvest. They were for this, her place here, her choice to stay, her becoming part of something that would outlast seasons. The sun had begun its slow descent when the final crate of grapes came in, the courtyard alive with the clatter of wood and the low murmur of tired but triumphant voices. The air was thick with the scent of crushed fruit and warm earth, the sharp sweetness of fermenting juice curling through the cooling breeze. Sophia's hands, like everyone else's, were stained deep red, the color caught in the creases of her palms, no matter how many times she rinsed them. She stood beside Luca at the head of the long table, her body humming with the day's work, the ache in her muscles oddly satisfying. Workers clustered in groups, talking over each other, glasses already raised in anticipation. The golden light slanted across the courtyard, setting the dust aglow, gilding the edges of everything it touched. Matteo's voice rose above the chatter, announcing what they had all been waiting to hear. The harvest was officially finished. The cheer that followed was immediate and full-bodied, echoing off the stone walls and spilling out toward the vines. It was the sound of relief, of pride, of another season secured. Luca turned toward her then, and something in his expression made the noise around them fall away. His eyes caught the last of the sunlight, turning them into something molten, and the way he was looking at her, like she was the only fixed point in the room, made her chest tighten. Without a word, he lifted his hands to her face, cupping her cheeks with palms that were still faintly stained from the day's work. She felt the roughness of his skin, the warmth seeping in, grounding her in the moment. And then he kissed her. It wasn't hurried or shy. It was deep, certain, and unguarded, the kind of kiss that left no space for questions, no room for doubt. Around them, the applause rose again, playful whistles and cheers mingling with the laughter, but Sophia barely registered it. All she could feel was the steady press of his mouth, the way he didn't pull away until they both needed air, the unspoken truth in the way his hands lingered as if he might never let go. When they finally broke apart, she was breathless but smiling, the sound of celebration swelling again around them. The last light of the sun bathed them in gold, the season's work behind them, and ahead, something even more certain. In that moment, under the fading Tuscan sky, they were not just a pair who had found their way back to each other. They were theirs, undeniably, irreversibly, and entirely.